Hello and welcome back to today's Hurricane Outlook and discussion, recorded around 7 PM Eastern Standard Time. Well, today we're going to be discussing Tropical Storm Eta that has made landfall on Cuba and now is approaching the Florida Keys and could be nearing hurricane strength. As it approaches, that's why a hurricane warning is in effect for the Florida Keys and the south tip of Florida. A hurricane watch is still in effect for the south and west and east coast of Florida as well. If we take a look at the ILR, we can see some drastic changes from yesterday. We are now seeing that southwesterly wind shear that we've been discussing for the past couple of days, and the dry air on the backside of the upper level low is now impacting the system, and we can now see a exposed low level center. The latest vortex data message did suggest that the northeast side of the northeast eye wall was open. If we take a look at the intensity models, we can see a gradual intensification over the next 24 hours as the storm environment becomes more favourable for intensification. It's important to note that the NHC is predicting this to become a Cat 1 hurricane, low-end Cat 1 hurricane, and then die down and back into a tropical system over the next couple of days. But we can also point out that some models take this up a bit more higher into mid-range Category 1 hurricane. Yeah. If we take a look at the GFS, we can see what we've been discussing about for the past couple of days. That upper level low that was sitting over here has now drifted southwards and is going to merge with this system. And what's happened today is we've seen that more evidently as we've move out in time. We can start to see that in the next 12 hours this is merged, and what we've got is our system sitting here. Oh, let me just draw that a bit better. We got our system sitting here, and then we got a general spin on top of it. If we carry on with that on the model, we can start to see what's going to be steering this storm. That upper level low that's drifted southwards has made the storm turn west. That's what's pivoted around, made that do that hard west turn. And now we see high pressure building on the west, and the high pressure that's building in the Atlantic and moving eastwards. And we also start to see a jet maximum and a trough approaching from the plains and dipping southwards. So over the next couple of days, we can see that the storm is just stalling out in the Gulf of Mexico, pretty much only moving ever so slightly, and then by this time this high pressure's trying to move the system southwards, as we can see on the model run. If I carry on moving out this in time, we can see that happen. So it dips southwards and comes close to the west tip of Cuba, where they've already seen impacts from the initial landfall from yesterday. If we carry on in time, we can start to see what's going to pick up the system and start getting it moving after it just meanders around in the central Gulf of Mexico, where it can intensify into a Cat 1 hurricane, or maybe a low-end or high-end Cat 1, or high-end Cat 1 and a low-end Cat 2 possibility. But we can start to see what's going to be steering the storm after the next couple of days as these competing steering flows. This high pressure is going to have less impact on the system as it's more farther east, and this high pressure that's building over the Atlantic on the east side is going to start picking the system up and start moving it to the north, and then eventually this trough is going to pick the system up and move it to the northeast in a relatively quick pace. We can see this happen on the model run. As I carry on going out of time, you can start to see that these two competing high pressures going to be competing. This high pressure is again this long high here, and that trough is basically going to keep this from moving for the next couple of days. So as we carry on going out, we can start to see that all these just competing high pressure, this competing steering flows just keep the storm down here and dissipating. However, the Euro model is suggesting what I was speaking about earlier, that it will get picked up after that west turn and start doing that north turn and eventually that northeast turn. I can show you that now on the Euro model. So we can see in the 850mm cyclonic vorticity, we can see our storm where it made landfall earlier, early morning, I think last night or early morning, and if we move out to the 24-hour mark, it's made the landfall, well not, I don't think it'll be a landfall, but a passing of the Florida Keys, and now it's moving westward because of the that pivot around that upper level low that we discussed about earlier. If we carry on going on the model, we can see that it dips more southwards, southwest, and then eventually it will make that turn up to the north as this high pressure that's building out into here is going to try and start to move in the storm to the north, and eventually the Euro takes the storm up to the Florida Panhandle up here, and is weakening the storm as it approaches the Florida Panhandle, and then by the 120-hour mark, it's just sitting off the coast of Georgia and maybe South Carolina as we get into the 5 to 6, 7 day mark, as we see. The NHC, I'll just quickly note, has came the westward. The NHC has came westward and is now starting to pick up that north movement, but is moving it into Florida as the Euro model is a bit more westward. But this is the official NHC track, so make your preparations around this, as mine opinions are mine alone. So I'll show you the main impacts that we're going to be seeing from the system, and the main impacts are going to be the wind and heavy rainfall, as this storm is going to be sitting around the central Gulf of Mexico and the Florida coastline for the next 5 days. So what we can see right now is in the next 6 to 12 hours, we can start to see that the storm comes in a more favourable environment with a nice moist pocket surrounding the system, so this could allow for further intensification. But what we can see very evidently is this onshore flow on the Florida, where they're just going to be getting pumped with rain and more rain, as we can see on the model run. Now Florida is just going to be getting hammered with lots of rainfall, unfortunately. So flash flood and flood prone areas will have to deal with this, as it will just be constantly coming in the next 5 days. Even by the next 24 hours, we can already more rain is adding up in the Florida Peninsula. As we carry on moving out of time, we can start to see the H4 move this westward and is deepening the system as it ever does that slowly, and by the 42 hour to 48 hour mark, the storm is the storm is basically building its own moist pocket, so this blocks out the dry air, so it can't get entrained as much. But we need to see, depending on how much time Eta has in this warm area war and deep upper ocean heat content, will depend on how much dry air gets entrained, because if we give the more system time, it's going to mix out all this dry air and build a barrier kind of against it, so it can't get wrapped into the inner core as much. But what we can see on the model very evidently is this large fetch of moisture as it comes from south to east, south to west. We start to get that onshore flow from like the now up until 54-hour mark, and even by then we're starting to see some more rain approaching the west coast of Florida and even the central part of Florida on the east coast still. That's why the NHC, I should have got this up earlier, but the NHC is predicting, let me just get the map up. That's why the NHC is predicting a nice little pocket of 6 to 10 inches near the south tip of Florida and some of the Florida Keys, and generally 4 to 6 inches for the south tip of Florida and the central part of Florida, around 2 to 4 inches, and even up far north and into some part of the Panhandle, you could be seeing up to 1 to 2 inches of rainfall. What also is coming into more of an issue for this storm is the possible storm surge, as the NHC is predicting a wide area of 1 to 2 feet possibly for the east coast, and from Golden Beach southwards 2 to 4 feet, and even on Botnia Beach southwards even 2 to 4 feet from there. Oh, sorry, I need to fix myself from Golden Beach southwards to Card South, Card Soundbridge, sorry, 2 to 3 feet. So I think that's all I have to say. Oh, I'll just quickly mention about the wind shear. What's happened is the wind shear has kept all this shear coming in, so the storm hasn't had really much time, a lot of times, like significantly intensify, but intensification is still on the table as it's going to come into a more favorable environment in this area where we could see some more intensification and like if the H12 model plays out, some more intensification in the central Gulf of Mexico over this warm area of water. That's enough. That's everything for today's video, and I'll see you tomorrow in the next one.